Welcome to the Ingrid Centurion podcast. I am retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel, Iraq War veteran, Black Hawk pilot, and founder of Generations for America, Ingrid Centurion. In this podcast, we discuss America's constitutional battles and undertake in engaging and comprehensive interviews with legal experts, whistleblowers, and insiders. We uncover the stories that others won't touch, from government overreach to erosion of liberties. Each episode dives into today's most pressing issues and empower listeners with knowledge to protect their rights. No fluff, no spin, just raw conversations for serious times. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States where men were free. That's a quote by Ronald Reagan. And I say that because we are here. We are here when we have judges violating the Constitution from the bench. We are here when we have parents who have no rights over their children in government public schools. The overreach of our local government, county government, state government, and national federal government is at an all-time high. And everybody sees what's going on today. And that's why we at Generations for America are focusing all our energies on teaching the Constitution from a law enforcement perspective. I say we're living in lawless times. Our constitutional seminar is called The Shield of Rights. And we will be having Zoom calls, webinars every Monday starting July 14th from 7 to 8 p.m. Understanding the Constitution requires continuous study for everyone, for every American citizen. And we truly believe, everyone at Generations for America believes in that. We believe that this nation was built on moral foundations. When the foundation of any home is destroyed, the frame of that home crumbles, and it crumbles quickly. And that's where we are today. And that's why we need as many organizations out there as possible who know the Constitution, who study the Constitution. And it's not an opinion of it. It's not their own interpretation. We really need to understand the principles, the framework. And once we have that in a coordination with understanding American history, we can move forward to defend our freedoms and defend our liberties, as we see every day they're being taken away from us. Yeah, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the Fifth Amendment, which we're hearing so much about. And I have Rocky Burke on the line. Thanks, Rocky, for being on the line again.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we're seeing so much about this issue. Everybody is pleading the Fifth. So I want to go ahead and just first read exactly from the U.S. Constitution. What does a Fifth Amendment say? And it says, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. No, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, that's pretty long, but let's break this down, Rocky, into what you're seeing going on out there in so many different cases right now.
All right. First of all, it starts out that no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury. All right, except in cases arising in land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. So let's open that up there.
Right.
Check that out.
That's a long sentence. That's a long sentence.
Yeah. But the thing about capital or otherwise infamous crime, okay? What's a capital or other infamous crime? Upon that, it shouldn't be. So with what's going on nationally, and of course with the Senate subcommittee hearings on the President Biden situation about his cognitive decline, about the use of the autopen and all of that there, all these people that are being subpoenaed in, that's coming in. First of all, how did they get to come in? First of all, they were asked to come in to testify in this Senate subcommittee hearings. And then some of them refused to show up, but then I think some of them had to be subpoenaed in, and those that are subpoenaed in. Now, so, that's how they got, I guess, invited or being held to come and answer questions. Now, once they get there and they overlook these Senate hearings, and then further down, when they are asked certain questions, first of all, these Senate hearings, is that a grand jury, or or is this a crime that they're investigating or being asked questions on? Is it a crime? I don't know. But however, the procedure is going through, the process is going through. These people are being called in, certain members of a staff, a doctor and what have you, and asked certain questions. And most of them, first thing they do is invoke their Fifth Amendment rights, which further down in the amendment says, let's see.
It says, nor
shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. All right. There again, that answers, is this a criminal case, or if this Senate subcommittee hearings is considered to be investigating the crime, or and I don't know what crime they're trying to prove or what they're trying to prove. It's evident. But they take the Fifth Amendment, which prohibits, they can't be a witness against themselves. And they say, now some people, when they take the Fifth Amendment, they say that, they actually quote, I respectfully decline to answer, invoking my Fifth Amendment rights, and some of them go on to say, and I've heard some people say, then I don't think this is added into the Fifth Amendment, or whether they say this, or whether these other people that already invoked the Fifth Amendment, I don't think they added on the sentence that I respectfully decline to answer, invoking my Fifth Amendment rights, based on the answers I give may incriminate me. You know what I mean? I haven't heard that sentence yet.
right.
And so just most of them is invoke the Fifth Amendment. Okay. So when somebody invokes the Fifth Amendment, to me, they know something that they don't want to say right then. And it kind of raises the issue. What do they know? Whether they did something wrong. And so they're going to, not answer based on that. Now, these hearings, and sometimes in criminal cases, when they're questioned by the prosecutors and asked certain questions that they questioned by the prosecutor, and they invoke the Fifth Amendment, if it being questioned by the prosecutor before trial, that it's not on stand, the prosecutors, as in the case of these Senate hearings, from what I understand, can offer them immunity.
Yes.
And offer them immunity toward any criminal activity or what have you, or any fallout from that.
So you're exactly right on that. And so let me talk about Brian Pagliano. He was Clinton's tech aide during Hillary Clinton. And he planned to take the Fifth Amendment at the disposition. And he did not want them to video record or audio record anything that he was saying. He was going to be questioned by Judicial Watch. This was in 2016. So they were trying to get information from him about her emails and all that stuff. Remember all that stuff going on? So as I continued to read and research on this, Judicial Watch they had to get a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, related to the Clintons' private email server. And Brian Pagliano refused to answer any of the questions. But then finally, he did speak to the FBI. But that was after getting government immunity. Just like you're saying. So explain that again so people understand obviously they're afraid that if something they say will get them into charges.
Right. Exactly. And that's why they invoked the Fifth Amendment. So when they get granted immunity, governmental immunity, or, in the deposition, they swore oath to tell the truth, and they invoke the Fifth Amendment, or if they get offered that immunity and they go ahead and answer the question, once they're offered that immunity, what that means, anything they say cannot be used against them in a criminal charge if they are criminally charged, or if they're called to answer for a criminally charge. Anything they say under immunity is sealed and cannot be used in any further proceedings, criminal proceedings or anything like that in crime, or any further depositions or questioning for any of the similar crimes or in discussing the same issue.
Okay, so and this is where I wanted to think about. This was Hillary Clinton's tech aide. He, I'm sure, managed her email, helped her with emails, had stuff, had detailed and inside information in reference to the email server. So he was afraid because maybe he was ordered by her to do certain things, right?
Well, maybe he had access to the emails that she had, either between him and her, that she was telling him to do certain things, or it could have been emails that he had access to other people discussing that Steele dossier, discussing the situation that they were investigating.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted a simple case of, okay, let's think through this. Why does someone take the Fifth? I get it, but once they're offered immunity, then they're willing to speak. So that's really important. Yeah. Now let's get back to Biden and the autopen. Everybody now is taking the Fifth.
Right. It's that. And this Senate subcommittee hearings, the federal Senate subcommittee hearings, is not, they're talking about the auto pen, but they're also talking about the decline. Who knew that the president was not fit or was not had the capacity to make these decisions that he did, and supposedly this auto pen signed all these orders. So, and everybody's taking the Fifth toward that. Now, especially his doctor, remember?
Right.
His doctor invoked the Fifth Amendment and the Hippocratic Oath as a doctor, where they can't discuss the medical condition of their patients in the open or in hearings and stuff like that. So his doctor did that. He took the Fifth and the he invoked the Hippocratic Oath, doctor-patient privilege.
Right.
So now, if they were to offer him immunity to speak, but even if they offered him that, I don't think he'd speak, because it would probably come out that he knew and that he maybe falsified medical records. And once you falsify the medical records, found out Hippocratic Oath, so over with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Immunity and all that. Look, now, unless they offer him immunity to anything, you understand what I'm saying? Falsifying medical records, falsifying the president's condition in medical records, or even speaking about that or anything, whatever he was prescribed to be on, to treat like this cognitive decline, and that kind of stuff. And also, you got to remember that President Biden was diagnosed with that stage 4 prostate cancer, and it spread into his bone.
Yes.
And so he's on medication for that. How long has he been on medication for that?
Yeah, we were talking about. That's right.
Go ahead.
No, I said we were talking about Biden's cancer last week, and how we felt that not we, I mean, Frank Bono and I were talking about it, and we were discussing how we believe that, former President Biden had the best healthcare advisors in the world. So I'm sure the whole family knew about this, but his career aspirations of becoming president were more important than his own health. And he continued forward. Also, we discussed that he was the only candidate that the Democrat Party got behind, so it didn't matter his personal health. They wanted to win the election, and that's why he was the candidate.
Yeah, and I got another focus on that too. Of course, Biden was knocked out of the race late in the game, and Kamala Harris was appointed as the heir apparent to run in the election. Now, the thing about that is, I want to get back to that thought about the medications he might have been on, or the medication he might have been on for cognitive decline. There's some medications they can prescribe to try to slow it down and stuff like that. But does that affect his capacity to make decisions? The medication for the prostate cancer and all. Because I was reading up on dementia and cognitive decline, and it's not just age that causes that. And some studies saying age have nothing to do with it. It's your health condition. What's going on in your health conditions? I've heard dementia and cognitive decline related to diabetes. It's called type 3 diabetes. If you have a heart condition or you're on medication for that, affecting the blood flow, from your heart to your brain, the blood flow to your brain. You know what I mean?
Right.
That kind of stuff, affects your cognitive ability and to make the statement. And I think that's why the doctor had taken, he invoked his Fifth Amendment and the Hippocratic Oath, patient-doctor confidentiality.
Yeah. So as individual Biden administration aides, as each and every one of them invoke the Fifth Amendment, it makes us all believe, yes, they all do not want to share. They don't want to share because they can find themselves in serious harm.
Yeah. And the reason why they're taking the Fifth Amendment, because they either know something, they know who was using the autopen, and they know that President Biden wasn't aware of it, and they know who's using the autopen, and some of them themselves may have used the autopen.
Yeah,
that's why, and that's why they've taken the Fifth.
Right. And then many of them too are taking the Fifth because they're being asked questions about his health. And they have to tell the truth. So they're going to lie. They're going to lie. And now we find out the pen. We find out his health. We find out the cancer. There's a lot going on here.
Well, yeah. These other people, other than the doctor, they cannot testify. They cannot testify to his medical condition or his health condition, other than what the doctor said. Now, what they can testify to is, like, I think we heard that the Secret Service agent told somebody that they found President Biden one time sleeping in the closet, or he got lost in the closet. thinking he was going to the bathroom or something like that. Them kind of stuff.
Right.
You know, yeah, they could testify to that on this date, we had to wake him up. On this date, he got lost in the club in the West Wing. On this date, he did this. On this date, on this date, he fell down going upstairs, like he was on the stage of that Air Force graduation ceremony.
Yes.
And when he was walking across the stage, just fell down. You know what I mean? Why did they do that? You know, and everybody rushed to it. So, you know, things like that, you know, you got the video with the time tap on that to see all that, and they couldn't see this. Yeah, that's what they could testify to, but they don't want to. And because they knew it was a problem and they're trying to cover it up because they don't want it to be said that they covered up anything. You know, I don't know what amendment that is that talks about the vice president having to take over or something like that, or, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right.
In the case of his wife, of course, they haven't called her yet to come in. They offered her to voluntarily come in, but of course she's going to invoke 2 banks. You know, they're married. They are married, and spousal of privilege is tied into that, along with, even though she was not in the country, and even if she used the autopen, who's going to testify against her if she did it by herself? Unless it is her aide, you know, or somebody. So everybody's covering that up. In other words, she don't have to testify because she's married to the man. She can invoke spousal privilege and anything, you know.
Okay.
So she don't have to testify. At least that's my opinion. Now, she volunteered. Of course, she ain't going to do that because she certainly knew he was in bad health. She certainly knew that he was not capable of capacity to make decisions, and she probably made a few for herself. And her chief of staff or whoever, her work husband, somebody might have, you know, used the auto pen, or by the chief of staff used the auto pen, or there may be some of these other aides that actually use the auto pen, and that's what they're covering up, and that's why they don't testify, because they knew, and they hide behind it. And now, of course, you know, I don't know how that's going to come out. You know, even if charges come out of this, people can still invoke the Fifth Amendment. You know, you're going to have to prove it. And how do you prove that? That might be one thing, too.
Well, I really think that this is a great story about what people will do to stay in power, to stay in their position. Poor President Biden was in decline. I think everybody saw that. It's just people want to stay on the throne, right? They want to continue to have the power, and that's the spouse along with him. It's a very sad situation, but it's all going to come out, and I hope we finally get to the truth about this.
Well, yeah, it's going to come out, and whether we get to the truth or not, I don't think it's going to happen. But just looking back and Monday morning quarterbacking it, I think what the plan was, and until these other Democratic officials and these other people got involved to tell him not to run, to take him out of the running, I think the plan was that they were trying to get him through the election, that everybody was thinking, and that he was still going to be the candidate, and that the people would elect him back to the presidential office and elect Kamala Harris back as the vice president. And I think that that's what they were trying to do, his inner circle, to get him through the election. And then, so be it, he got diagnosed with that stage 4 prostate cancer, and they were going to get him elected to president. And, you know, God forbid, and I don't mean nothing harsh by it or spiritual like it, they were going to let him die in office, is what I'm saying. That's what I think their plan was, to get him through the election and get him elected again, and let him die in office. And because that stage 4 prostate cancer started spreading to his bone, he don't have much longer to, you know.
There's so many ways to look at this, But it's still a great discussion on our Constitution, on the Fifth Amendment, and what this past administration did. So we're all going to watch, we're all going to be waiting, and we all hope that justice is served in the future. So I think this was a great discussion today about the Fifth Amendment, Rocky, and we'll find another great article to talk about next week. Thanks for listening to the Ingrid Centurion podcast. Be sure to join me every week as we bring you inspiring guests, facts, and hard-earned lessons. Find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or in your favorite podcast app. If you would like to be a guest, get involved, or find out about sponsorship opportunities, reach out to us at ingridcenturion.com or generationsforamerica.com. Thank you, and we'll see you next week, so tune in for more conversations.